2016 was a nice year for movies, and I had a lot of fun visiting the cinema weekly. Therefore, I'd like to look at some of my personal favorite cinematic highlights of 2016. Before I start the list, I want you to keep some things in mind. This list is purely opinion-based, and these are only movies I've seen. If a movie isn't on the list, it's either because I haven't seen it or I don't feel the same way about it. Some of these movies aren't exactly from 2016, but didn't make the Dutch cinemas until 2016. For those, I made an exception. That aside, let's start the list. Number 10. 10 Cloverfield Lane. In my top 10 worst movie cliches, I said I hated dumb protagonists in horror movies. 10 Cloverfield Lane shows you just how powerful a thriller with a smart protagonist can be. In fact, she is way ahead of you. If she's in peril or can't find the solution to a problem, you truly feel as helpless as she is, making the story more suspenseful than if she ended up in this position due to dumb decisions. It's a clever movie about isolation and what you would do in their situation. John Goodman plays an unpredictable and creepy guy, always making you guess what's going on in his mind. I wasn't a fan of the ending. Maybe it's because the ending focuses on something completely different, catching you off guard. That being said, it didn't ruin anything that happened before the ending for me. 10 Cloverfield Lane, a solid suspense movie that shows you just how powerful a smart protagonist in a thriller can be. Number 9. Nerve. If you haven't seen the trailer, don't watch it. It spoils almost the entire film, and the trailer makes it look like it's an action flick about crazy stunts. The trailer was the very reason I didn't want to watch this film, but I saw it as a sneak preview and I was very pleasantly surprised. Nerve is a movie that cleverly criticizes the use of the internet, the modern technology, and how an audience can shape the entertainment we post online. The story is about an app that challenges you to do risky, sometimes life-threatening things for money. Post your actions online for the world to see and become a star. With stuff like Twitch and YouTube where people do all kinds of crazy stuff for attention, or with sites like 4chan where people can share extreme content for entertainment, Nerve is not that crazy of an idea. It's a nice representation of where we are in the online entertainment or where we're going to. What's so clever about the way the story is told is that it's not necessarily about the crazy stuff they do, like the trailer wants you to believe, but about the characters. It's about what caused them to use this app and how this application affects their lives. In regards to problems, yeah, this is not a realistic execution of this idea. There are a lot of plot holes and you need to take this movie with a grain of salt. But if you're willing to overlook the plot holes, I think it's a pleasant surprise that is definitely worth checking out. Number 8. The Nice Guys. The funniest movie I've seen last year, and sadly it bombed at the box office. What makes this movie work so well is the chemistry between Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling. These two work off of each other perfectly. Russell plays a typical tough guy who lives by his own rules, and Ryan plays a guy who tries to do good but has a lot of bad luck. None of these two stereotypes are ever overplayed. Ryan never becomes so unlucky that it starts to feel mean or sad, and Russell never gets overpowered to the point of being ridiculously stupid. The movie manages to find a clever balance to make both these stereotypes funny again. This movie has the one hilarious joke after the other, never having a dull scene.
How stupid do you think I am? I got a license to carry, dumbass. And ever since your little visit, this little baby's gonna stay right here.
It even has a surprisingly engaging detective story I was genuinely interested in. If you like watching comical duos doing detective work, this is definitely one to try out. Number 7. Nocturnal Animals. An exciting thriller that makes you think once the credits start. Nocturnal Animals is about a woman getting a book written by her ex, claiming that it was written specifically for her. Since it's a thriller, you can expect this isn't the most pleasant of stories. In fact, I was hands down shocked by certain parts. It raised the burning question, why did he write this book and why is it aimed at her? The movie tells 3 different stories: how their relationship came to be in the past, how her life is in the present as she's reading the book, and the story in the book itself. I like how this movie doesn't explicitly give you answers once it ends. It kept me thinking about the movie, playing it over and over again in my head, coming up with a conclusion of my own. I love it when movies do that. A clever and ambitious thriller I loved watching. Number 6. Arrival. I went into this movie completely blind. Finding out what it is about is a fun experience in and of itself. My recommendation, if you haven't seen it, is to try to go in as blind as possible. Move on to the next movie on this list. Just go. Get out of here. If you want to know more than that, I can spoil the basic plot. It's about an alien encounter, but it does something with its subject matter that hasn't been done before. Of all the movies about alien encounters, this story felt the most plausible to me. It has the sense of discovering something unknown, like no other movie I've seen last year. Half the time I didn't know what to think. Should I be afraid? Should I not worry? This movie tackles that feeling of uncertainty towards the unknown perfectly. Like Nocturnal Animals, this movie treats you like an intelligent being. There are multiple things that require patience and thinking in order to fully understand them. Some of the problems I have are with the slow pacing and some plot elements that take some time before they start to get interesting. Especially the last 50 minutes dragged on way longer than needed. But that aside, I still think this is a great and suspenseful movie that shows alien encounters in a way I haven't seen before, and that felt very plausible. Number 5. Ist Wieder. A German comedy about Hitler waking up in modern times. I've seen Hitler showing up in many comedies, but he's mostly used as a cheap joke. Look, it's Hitler! And they do nothing clever with him. This movie isn't just funny, but for as weird as the idea sounds, it actually makes you believe this is how Hitler might react upon seeing the modern times. It truly dives into the psyche of Hitler, how he reacts to the things he sees, and his thoughts on modern society, making it all the funnier when he ends up in silly scenarios. It even has a surprisingly strong message at the end, making it more than just a joke ride. It's a controversial movie due to the theme, but pretty darn hilarious and genius at the same time. Number 4. Zootropolis. Zootropolis is not just a feel-good colorful Disney movie with a lot of funny moments, but has a surprisingly creative take on racism. The way the roles of different cultures and genders are portrayed in the different animal types is very cleverly done. I love it when Pixar or Disney takes an adult subject like jealousy and self-acceptance, the influence of events on your emotions and mind, or in this case, prejudice, and translates it to a fun, child-friendly experience. This is one of those Disney movies where I like the serious moments, centered around character development just as much as I love the feel-good humor. Zootropolis. It's smart, funny, has likable characters, it's eye candy, and it has a surprisingly strong story that addresses some issues adults can recognize. I love it, and, like many Disney movies, I will definitely watch it every couple of years from now on. Number 3. Demolition. A greatly underrated movie. Demolition is a fascinating character study about a man whose wife passes away, but the way he deals with it is kinda strange. He doesn't have the same way of dealing with emotions most people have. Instead, he acts on his instincts, expressing whatever comes to mind at that moment, not explaining or even understanding why he is doing the things he does. This can lead to both hilarious moments since he is a quirky man, as well as it can introduce you to some very likable characters that work off of the protagonist very well. There were multiple scenes in this movie where I didn't know whether to laugh or feel sympathy, but whatever happened, I was glued to the screen. Jake Gyllenhaal became one of my personal favorite actors of the last few years. If his name shows up on the trailer, chances are huge I'm going to see it. Demolition, a movie I think deserved more attention, and it was definitely one of my favorite movies I've seen in the cinema last year. Number 2. Hacksaw Ridge. It's a cliche to put on a top 10 movies of 2016 list at this point, but yeah. Hacksaw Ridge, based on actual events, tells of a man who refused to carry arms into a war zone. The first half of this movie is all about the character development. Who is Desmond, what kind of life does he have, and who are the people in his life? It gives you a good impression of his life and why he does the things he does, making the moment he goes to war more tragic. And boy, these war scenes are intense. It's almost like a horror movie. The brutal realism of the war scenes are hard to watch. But that's one of the things this movie does so well. It makes you feel like you're there with the characters, making the story of Desmond almost miracle-like. If you're interested in war movies like Saving Private Ryan, this is something you definitely mustn't skip. Before I get to number 1, first some honorable mentions. Deadpool, Hardcore Henry, and Skip Trace. These 3 action comedies I thought offered great action, great comedy, and were just a ton of fun to watch. Skip Trace especially I feel slipped under a lot of people's radar. If you grew up with Western Chan movies like Shanghai Nights or Rush Hour, this is definitely something worth checking out. Sully, Captain Fantastic, and A Hologram for the King. 3 solid drama stories. They were heavily character driven, Who are the characters and how do the events they stumble upon affect their life? Because of these likable, fleshed out characters, I definitely had a good time watching. Storks, Kung Fu Panda 3 and Ma Vie de Courgette. 3 strong animated movies. Storks and Kung Fu Panda 3 I think are hilarious feel-good movies. Ma Vie de Courgette is a touching French animated movie about orphans who form a bond in the orphanage. It is also a feel-good movie, but in a different way Storks is. It also slipped under a lot of people's radar and I think it deserves more attention. La La Land. I've criticized musicals before, but La La Land is a musical that does everything right. It gives you a break from the songs from time to time, each song has a good timing and above all, a likable, well-developed romance. It's not on the list because it's a cliché story about following your dreams I've seen a million times before, but it does a good job at it and visually it's one of the best movies I've seen this year. But in terms of story, there were no surprises. Let's not waste any more time and get to number 1. My personal favorite movie of 2016 is Kubo and the Two Strings. To me, Kubo is a movie where everything falls into place perfectly. Visually, it's one of the most gorgeous looking movies I've seen last year. The animation is phenomenal and it sets the bar for stop motion animation very high. But in terms of the story and how the story is told, it's one of the few movies of last year to leave me speechless. It's an adventure movie with action, comedy, likable characters and a lot of imagination. But unlike some other adventure movies that are mostly feel-good and fun, there is a heart and emotional side to this movie. It's not afraid to get dark, it gets emotional, it takes risks, and it doesn't have that everything turns perfect in the end sweetness to it. All these different elements blend together perfectly. You can watch this as a fun adventure movie, you can watch it as a piece of art for its visuals, but you can get invested in its story just as well. The ending of this movie is my favorite movie ending of 2016, and I think it captures the heart of the movie perfectly. It's very rare for me to watch a movie more than once in the cinema, but I made an exception for this one. This is the only movie last year that made me want to see it again as soon as the credits started. I've seen it 3 times now and it got even better the more I watched it. Kubo and the Two Strings. I loved every minute of it and it is, without a doubt, my absolute favorite movie of 2016. So that was my list of my favorite movies of 2016. Which one are your favorite movies? Let me know in the comments and thanks for watching.